Hi, this screencast is going to walk through recent improvements to user submission management for the Webform module for Drupal 8. Hi, my name is Jake Rockwitz. I'm known as Jay Rockwitz on the web. I'm a Drupal developer and software architect. I built and maintained the Webform module for Drupal 8. How has user submission management been improved? Well, tables and labels can be customized for previous submissions and saved drafts. I love the rhyming of tables and labels. So user submission table and labels. There's another feature that now we can save multiple drafts. You have to turn that on. It opens up this option where you might have an invoice system where people are filing multiple invoices and they can create drafts for those. And then you can customize the user submission columns that are displayed when they're looking at those drafts or previous submissions. And you can even go in and customize submission labels. Another feature that I'm going to demo is Webform and user submission limits can be displayed and tracked in a block. This was a feature that already existed, but I wanted to provide a user interface to see that information as someone's looking at a form, and also just test some APIs. So submission limits are set up already. There's existing function now per web form, per user, per source entity. And you can get this information in the block, and I also added tokens to display this information so you can get those three limits and then the totals based on whether, the user totals, whether you can get the total number of submissions, the total number that the user submitted, the total per source entity. And I'm going to just start demoing it. And I'm going to start off this plain vanilla install. I'm going to walk through really the contact module and use that as the example. So let's go and create let's do this. Let's turn on drafts, right? That's the first step. Do it for both users. And we're going to allow multiple drafts. So that's going to enable the key functionality we're looking for. I'm going to go in, I'm going to create some drafts. I'm going to go over here and save a draft. Now I'm clicking on the tab, I'm logged in, so I'm clicking on the tab, I'm doing a refresh, and I'm saving another draft. And now if I click, it's going to say view your pending drafts, which allow you to navigate over here and see your pending drafts. So now I'm going to go back to the form, and I'm going to do some previous submissions as well. So I'm going to go over to the test tab, and now we're just creating submissions. So think about it this way. I've created two drafts, and now I'm going to hit send. I'm going to hit back, and hit send again. I've created two previous submissions. So if we go in, and I go back to the main form, you're going to see two messages. View your pending drafts, and view your previous submissions, and we're going to see them. Now this is a feature that I'm really happy to have added because this information for user is kind of useless. It's an ID, a date, and their IP address. It's not relevant information. It's very hard to understand what's really going on here. So a significant improvement, and these are the two other features tied to improvements to user submission management. If I go over to edit, I go to settings, I go down, I'm going to collapse all because it's a little easier. There's two features. I'm going to start from the top with submission settings and go in here, and we can now customize the label when they look at the submission so it doesn't just say contact submission 1. And this is customized to say the subject and the name. And then you can also pick the columns, and you can see the default that we all expect, because here's the problem. I don't know what the elements are going to be, so it's very hard to customize this. But for each form, you can go in, and this makes a lot more sense to me, is to go in and say, well, your name, your email, your subject. So you're basically showing the elements, and you could change the order of these. But for now, I think that's perfectly fine. Oh, you know what? Completed and created are useful, but let's move those to the end, right? So these are kind of relevant. It is shared between the previous drafts, the previous submissions and the saved drafts. But now if we go over and we click through, you get a much richer table with relevant information. And then if I click on this, this is going to restart the draft. So it's going to fill out the form. Now if I go to previous submissions and I click through, you're going to get to the previous submission. You can see the custom title kicking in. And this is a huge improvement. It starts to make it possible to create these richer application experiences. And to follow through with that, I also wanted to improve submission limits. So let's go back up to the contact form and let's add submission limits. So this is jumping to the next part. So we've walked through user submission management. Now we're talking about how we're managing submission limits. And I'm going to do the collapse all trick and show all so we can go straight to submission limits. I'm going to apply a few. So let's say the total for this is 100. I'm not going to do source, 100. We're not going to change any of the messages. Per user, I'm only going to allow a user to submit, well, I've done 4, so I'm going to make it really hard for myself if I do any more than that. So I'm going to say 10. And then there could be a custom message. I'm going to hit save. And you'll see when I go to the form, it doesn't say anything about submission limits. So the real concept that I'm after is going in here and going to block layout. And we're going to go to sidebar second. I'm going to go to Webform. And we're going to go to submission limits. And you can pick how you want them displayed. I'm not going to go crazy here. So this is displays limit and total submissions for the web form. We're not going to restrict it to the source entity. You can just turn that off. You can actually put tokens in. So we can put in, limit here, total here. And actually, I think I want this reverse because this is a tricky kind of, it got submitted, but I will jump back. Sorry about that. We're going to want to move this here and put the total. So the total is the total number of submissions in this instance. So we're going to always want that the first, and then the limit will be the maximum that you can have. And we can show progress bar. So this is for the form. And if I place another block, I can go in, do the filtering, submission limits. You can go in here and say, well, I want to show the user's submission limits. I'm not going to restrict it to source entity either. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use that token, and we're going to start off with the bracket total. Oh, I must have misspelled it before. That's okay. Misspellings are fine for demos. And then if I hit limit, now we're here. We're going to hit save. So we've added these 2 blocks to the sidebar, and the blocks only turn on if there are submission limits. So now we're going to jump back up to this form. We're going to go to the contact form, and you see the submission limits kicking in. And if I hit send message, and save draft won't move them forward, but if I hit send, let's do test. Send. And then I click back. It's gone up to 3. And now I have 3 limits, and it keeps track of it. And a lot of this stuff I just want to talk about, like I set these blocks up to give site builders who are not programmers something to work with, because you have full control. These are all templated, so you can theme the heck out of this, and it gets you the numbers, and all the data goes right into the template, so you can tweak this. I'm using the default progress bar. It's a little hack to turn off the animation so it doesn't bother people. But it also opens up the API, so it makes it clear to developers who might need to really customize this that they might want to go in and tweak this further or build their own block. I'm starting to account for the concept that you might, so this is displaying the block in the context of this form. It figures out we're on a contact form, what are the limits. You're also able, there's some advanced settings here where you can go in and say, well, I want to show, let's say you're embedding this block in a landing page and you're showing a petition that people are about to sign and you want to show the numbers for the petition. This gives you the ability to set the data, the context, the additional information. Anyway, thought this was a nice feature. I thought it would help a few people out, and it's also good code to look at and just explore. So moving forward, what this is opening up is this concept of building rich applications using the Webform module, because we're starting to get better user submission management, better submission limit tracking, and what's next for submission management is I really feel like improving the demo applications. And there's these modules called demo modules. There's one for event registration and one's an application evaluation system. And they provide like working examples of multiple web forms working together. They provide starting points. And they make it easier to show complex use cases. And for me, sometimes it just makes it easier to test these use cases, to walk through them and gradually build them out. And I think I'm going to start working on those a little bit more and flesh those out, especially even just customizing the table to show, the user submission table to show relevant columns or changing the label on that. And so when I'm demoing it at an event, people get a better concept of what they can do with the Webform module. With that said, how can I help you with Webforms in Drupal 8? I can help you with training and support. We can work together to build a feature. I can help you succeed with Drupal 8 and Webforms. You can find me on jrockwitz.com or jrockwitz@drupal.org. Thanks for your time.